think we got her dialed in. Let's go home and make a video. All right, we might be in for a long one, diving into the full setup of the Canon R7 for wildlife photo and video. Might be sweating here in my little AC-less studio before it's over, but let's just dive on into it. We're in the red tab with the camera on it. Menu 1, I shoot C-RAW. You can shoot RAW. There's not really much debate around image quality. Everybody's saying that it looks pretty much the same. It's a lossless quality. Personally, I use it because you get a better buffer on the camera. Page 2, I do set up some ISO settings here. So I like it when I turn on ISO 400, kind of a good starting point for early morning. And I mean, you can change that on the fly. We'll go over all that. But that's where it'll be when I just turn the camera on. And I set my range to cap out at 6,400 because I don't want to go over that. You'll start getting a lot of noise in the image. Other than that, nothing else on page 2. Page 3, I leave everything the same. I shoot in evaluative metering. Page 4, I don't change anything here. For photography, I like auto white balance. Page 5, lens aberration correction. I do leave the peripheral on and the digital lens set to standard. So just a little in-camera processing. The distortion, I let Lightroom handle all of that. The rest of that I leave off. Page 6, I would like to do raw burst, but you need Canon proprietary software to do it, which I have, but it's just a pain in the butt to go through, open the files, find the pictures you want. So I'm not using it until I come up with a better method. The rest of that for wildlife, focus bracketing, multi-exposure is not going to apply, and we're talking about setting this up for wildlife. So page 7. So for wildlife, I like high, that's like 20 frames per second. High plus would be 40. Could do that if it's something really critical, but you're talking about going through a lot of files. Silent shutter, I turn that on. I do like the electric shutter. I know you get some rolling shutter when you use the electric shutter, but for me, the mechanical shutter is really noisy. I like electronic. I like the silent because I'm shooting critters, and I'm just not a big fan of mechanical. I don't blame anybody who likes to use it. It will take care of that rolling shutter problem and maybe get you a few more keepers. Me personally, on my Canon 6D, I had 2 early mechanical shutter failures, and that was really expensive putting that camera in the shop. So I'm just a big fan of electronic shutters. So silent shutter function on, which automatically enables the electronic shutter mode. Release shutter without card. You want that off. If you forget your card, you don't want the shutter clicking away thinking you're taking pictures. Get home and you got nothing. So that is something I change. Image stabilization. It's just for movie mode. Don't like it. Don't use it. Some people do. That's great. Auto level for photos. It's just 1 frame. I can fix that in Lightroom. Touch shutter disable. That's where you can trigger the shutter on the back of the camera. I like that off. Image review, I leave off. I don't want to be taking pictures, an image pops up and all of a sudden I can't see what I want to shoot next. I will just hit the play button. There's nothing on page 9 I change. And page 10, movie setting. This is just for the top of the camera, your little record button. If you're in photo mode, you press that. You're shooting movies and it's basically auto. It's doing everything automatic as far as shutter and all of that. So I don't use it often unless I'm taking pictures and I see something's about to happen. Don't have time to switch to video mode. Press that button and it is shooting in what you have set up. I have it set up to 4K 60 so I can slow it down in post. I keep my sound recording on auto and the rest of that I leave alone because I don't use that feature a lot. We'll go through a full setup of the video mode for this camera. So that's the red menu. Over to the autofocus menu. Want servo on. We'll set up some other back buttons to change all this, but in this menu, want servo on. Autofocus area, I have it set to the smallest one. Some people like 1 point. Some people like spots, some people like the zones. I haven't noticed much different in what I've been practicing. Subject tracking off for now, but we'll set up a back button for that. Subject to detect animals, eye detection on. I do change track subjects to from 1 to 0, initial priority for some stickiness. Want it to stick on that subject and not bounce around. Over here in Autofocus menu 2, I basically have my custom dial set up for a couple things, and I'm either using case 2 for bird in flight or case 3 for erratic birds in bushes, stuff like that. So 2 for bird in flight, 3 for birds in bushes. Pretty simple. And on each one, I've taken the tracking sensitivity down 1 notch to be locked on and hopefully be a little stickier on the subject matter. Tab 3, preview autofocus disable. I want to turn that from enable to disable. I'm hiking around a lot, carrying the camera. It doesn't need to always be focusing even when I'm not looking through it. And that's where you turn that off. Lens drive when autofocus is impossible. I have that on, so it'll hunt for the subject in the frame when it doesn't nail the autofocus right away. Touch and drag, I have that on. You don't need it on. I'm not quite used to the joystick yet. I'm used to using the rear screen here as a joystick on my Canon R8, and that's what that setting does. It allows you to use the screen as a joystick. I just have that on for now until I get used to using the joystick on the Canon R7. Manual focus peaking I have turned on. I like high red. Focus guide I have turned on. Movie servo I have just left on enabled. On page 6, electronic manual focus, I like it on one shot enabled magnify, and that's going to have to do with our back buttons here. We'll get to that in a minute. The rest of that I leave the same. The blue menu, the only thing I change is on 6, highlight alert enable, and that's just if you review an image and you are overexposed, those overexposed areas are going to blink and it's going to tell you retake the image, dial back the exposure a little bit. Now we're into the connection menu, the little antenna there. I always keep airplane mode on. I'm never doing any tethering or Wi-Fi stuff or Bluetooth connect or any of that. If you were, you'd want to leave airplane mode off. But for what I'm doing, I leave it on just to save a little battery life. Now we're to the function menu. A couple things I change here for preference. I disable the beep. I want completely silent shooting because I'm shooting critter. Power saving, I don't know why it's not disabled, but I disable all of that. I want my camera to be on. I want to be ready to use it. I understand if you want some of those limits set. I carry extra batteries. So if they get low, I just switch out a battery. I don't want any of this going to sleep while I'm in the field. And kind of same thing with my screen brightness and viewfinder. I want the best performance. I crank it all the way up. And the rest of this I don't change. So over here in the orange menu, we're going to come to page 3. We'll start with custom dials. I like to set the control ring to ISO. I do full manual shooting. So I have my shutter, my aperture, and my ISO all within reach. I can change anything on the fly. That's just personally how I like to do it. A lot of people like auto ISO. There's nothing wrong with that either. Custom buttons. So you want to change your main button, your trigger button here, to metering start. If you want to set up back button focusing, which I think you should do, you want a separate button for your trigger and a separate button for focusing. You're just going to nail more shots that way. Come down to the AF on button, and we're going to change that to eye detection AF. So when you press this button, you're starting your eye detection. It's searching the whole screen, looking for an eyeball. That's that tracking we left off earlier. Now we're controlling it right here with this button, turning it on. So you press that, you hold it down, it's tracking the critter. It pops on its eyeball. You press the trigger, you're getting sharp photos, hopefully, if it nailed it, if it worked right. We're setting the star here to metering autofocus start. And that's just kind of a 1 point focus that you can move around with the joystick. Press that button, and now instead of tracking the whole thing, you're putting it where you want it, and you're focusing there. In case that eye detection fails, which it does. Then we have another one, a third backup. This button right below the star, we're setting that to one-shot servo. So I'll show you what that does. Let's say you're trying to track a bird. You got a feather here, but it wants to keep clicking on something else. See, every time I click that, it's not going to the feather. It's going to this lamp I have set up over here on my table. Not what we want. So we use the joystick, put it where we want, hit the star, our 1 point, and now we're focused on it. But what if that doesn't work either? What if there's a branch in front of the bird and it's clicking on the branch, it's not going back to the bird? We have a third option. You click the button below the star, you're in one shot now. Now if you press the star button and you turn your focus, remember that one shot magnify, focusing right where we want to be, right on that feather. Look how sharp that is. And that's your more precise control for if a bird is really hard to detect. Now, should you need all those back button focuses on a camera like this with eye detection, I find I'm having to use it a little too much on this camera. I think the eye detection should work better. You got me over here, up, down, left, right, BA, start. If you know where that's from, drop me a message down in the comments. But really, I'm finding myself having to use all three methods quite often, more than I did on the R8. We'll hop into all that in the review later on. But that's pretty much it. That's how I set up everything on this for the camera mode. Next, we'll hop into the video mode after I get a drink of water because my voice is getting harsh. So now we are looking at the video mode and we're back on tab 1. So I set up my custom buttons. I have custom one for 4K fine. That's my really cinematic stuff. And I keep my shutter at 1/50 for the 180-degree shutter rule, which is keep your shutter twice your frames per second. Then C2 I have set up for 4K 60 crop, slow-mo with that crop factor to really get in, get some good detail shots. C3 I have set up for 1080p 120. And the way you do that, you come down here to high frame rate, hit enable, and now you can choose full HD 1080p 120. It's actually pretty sharp on this camera and really good for bird in flight and stuff that you really want to slow down. For C1, what we're looking at right now, I have it set to 4K fine, which is the best movie quality this camera can do. So tab 1, this is where you would choose all that. I haven't really used the regular 4K because it's kind of soft and I either want the best quality or I want that crop factor. And I shoot everything in IPB for the best compression. I don't use IPB light. I wish it had all eye, but it does not. IPB is still pretty good. Page 2, ISO speed settings. The base ISO on this for video mode is 800. So I want it to start at 800 and I have it capping off at 6,400 because I don't want to go above that on my ISO. Page 3, because you're in movie mode, you don't want to use auto white balance. I'm usually out before the sun comes up and I have it set to white balance cloud. You could use shade. I find the color in cloud is a little better. So that covers me until the sun comes up. Or if it's cloudy when the sun comes up, I can just continue shooting with that. I have my multifunction button set to change the white balance on the fly. So if the sun comes up and it's not cloudy, I can switch to white balance sun. I shoot everything in C-Log 3. That's my personal preference. It's what I like. A lot of people like using the picture profiles for fast turnaround. And you can do that as well. I like C-Log because I like to get the best dynamic range out of the camera, and I love color grading. To me, that's just an adult coloring book. And in the future here, I'll be dropping some digital assets, which will be my C-Log footage that you can go and color grade yourself with some tip and help sheets. I got those in the works. If it's something you're interested in, hit that like and subscribe because they will be coming soon. And I shoot in Cinema Gamut, gives me the most color for color grading, which I like doing. You could shoot in Rec 709. And I have color assist on. If you have it off, you're going to get that real flat log look. This just kind of throws on a generic LUT to give you some contrast and color to help you while you're shooting. When you actually get the footage, it will be that log look that you need to color grade. Next page for lens chromatic aberration, I have all that on. I want it controlled in the camera because DaVinci doesn't have all these features like you would have in Lightroom. It's a lot harder to do in post. So for video mode, I have all that turned on. Don't use in-camera noise reduction. I'll do all that in post. Nothing on tab 5. I don't like the digital image stabilization. Some people do. I just personally don't like it, especially on a telephoto lens when you're trying to hold still with the lens and in-body image stabilization. You turn on digital, sometimes you get some jitters in there. I don't like that. For movie mode, I do turn on auto level because it's a lot harder to correct in post because you have multiple frames. You can't just rotate it a little bit if you're turning the camera in post and have it correct because you might be moving the camera different ways. It's a lot better just have that handled in camera. I have my metering timer set to 30 minutes just because I don't want it making changes on the fly as I'm shooting. Zebra settings, I have it on, and this is for wildlife. I'd set it up different if I was shooting people, but for wildlife, I have just Zebra 2, and I have it set to 75%. And the way I'm using that, ignore the shutter speed. That's just indoor example here. Let's say I'm shooting a bird. I'm turning the ISO. I start hitting those zebras. That means I've hit my 75% cap for the highlight alert. I've been doing this a lot. I started with 90, went down to 80, and now I'm at 75. So the way I do this, if those pop up, say in the clouds, on the silver lining, or in the feathers of a bird, I know I am testing the camera's limits of what it'll capture for detail in those highlights. So I'll dial it back until the zebras are just barely there, or one notch back until they disappear completely. And that's my critical exposure on the whites of a bird's feather, on the definition of clouds. I really want that detail there. So that's why I have it set at 75%. At 90 and 80%, the zebras were giving me the warning, but I was still getting clipping in those highlights. I found that 75% to be the best spot. So zebras on, 75% is my warning. Zebra pattern 2. Nothing on page 7. Autofocus. You want your servo enabled, whole area, subject tracking on, detect animals, eye detection enabled. I did go from switching track subjects 1 to 0 for stickiness on the subject. And that's everything on that page. For the page 2, I changed the movie servo track sensitivity to -1 to help it stay locked on the subject a little more. Page 3, lens drive when autofocus is impossible on. 4, I don't change anything here. 5, I like my focus guide on. And 6, electric full-time manual focus on, and I have this set to the magnified just like in the photography mode. So we'll go from the autofocus menu all the way over to our back button. The rest of that's pretty much going to be the same as before. Customize styles. I still have my ISO up here. Customize buttons. I have the autofocus set to autofocus metering, start, stop, and sometimes if it's not tracking a bird, just kind of pumping that button a little might get it to jump on the target you want. But this is a more important one. The star button here, I have it set to autofocus stop. And then the button below the star button, I don't even know what that's called. It looks like a plus sign. I have set to magnify. So why do we do this? Let's say our autofocus tracking is not working. Like we're looking at this scene here. We have the bird feather. We have a lantern that wants to keep jumping too. So we want it to focus on the bird feather. We have a couple options. We can hold down that star button, turn our focus till we're there, nice and sharp, hit record, and keep holding down that star button. Because as soon as we let go, it's going to switch the autofocus back on. But until then, we had the feather sharp. That's what we wanted to record. So good for short-term stuff of overriding the autofocus. If you've already hit record and you're recording and you want to change that, you can hit the star button while you're recording to adjust focus manually. But you're going to get the autofocus assist instead of the magnification because you're in record mode. So that can come in handy as well if it's hopped off focus a little bit and you just need to tweak it. The other thing we can do is switch our lens to manual focus. Use this to punch in. Can go really far in, get really sharp. Hit record, and now we're just completely in manual focus. So getting something really critical that's not going to move a lot, that's just another way to do it. So once again, some custom back button settings here to help you nail your focus in just different scenarios. So that's it, y'all. That is my full walkthrough on how I have set up the Canon R7. Hope this helps you guys out. I'm going to try and come up with some cheat sheets. I'll make them for free downloads. I'm not sure if they'll be done by this video or not. I'm going to be linking it all on my website. I'll have a link in the description to get to my website. Like and subscribe. Check out my website. All that fun stuff. I'm going to be dropping lots of freebies to help you guys out. All right. Thanks. Until next time.